Well, we're looking forward to the ringing of the bell of the U.S. Central America by Robert Evans. It's going to happen shortly. It's at 10:30 here at the American Numismatic Association show. Well, there's a lot of anticipation for the ringing of the bell. We're just moments before Mr. Evans starts his presentation.
268 pounds. I had it hung up in the rafters of my barn last summer, so that was interesting. But that's where I worked on it because I had the equipment to do so, you know. I live in Ohio. The bell was made in New York and recovered off of the Carolina coast. It's traveled around a bit. Over 11,000 gold pieces have come into the market through, our work on that. Much of it from the area you're looking at there, which was part of the commercial shipment, where there were boxes of double eagles. It was amazing, truly amazing. Well, good morning and welcome to the World's Fair of Money, where I have here what I think is sort of the ultimate piece of what we would call exonumia, something having to do with money, but in a rather obscure and otherworldly kind of way. This is the bell of the SS Central America, the fabled ship of gold. For those who don't know, the ship of gold is so nicknamed for having brought over 11,000 pieces of gold, bars, and coins into the numismatic market during two sort of major periods of marketing and recovery. We recovered the gold first back 1988 through 1991. The marketing began in 2000, and some of you may remember the Ship of Gold exhibit. It was quite remarkable. But there was a period of 23 years between 1991 and 2014 where the project was all about basically the legal issues and business. So in 2014, I was privileged to go back as chief scientist on a return expedition, and that's when we got the gold coins and also the ship's money, a lot of silver coins, very interesting from other parts of the shipwreck other than just the commercial shipment area. I like to think of it now as the treasures of the SS Central America rather than simply the treasure. It's no longer quite as monolithic as it once was. But the bell we recovered in 1988, and it was an important part of confirming the site. We knew we had a paddle wheel steamship because we had, I'll use airborne analogies here, but we had flown our cameras over the top of the shipwreck, and we had seen the paddle wheels, we had seen the engines, everything sort of looked good. To be honest, I had found a little bit of gold dust in sediment which had been scraped up by our robot during one of our landings on the bottom. It's fascinating that this ship is so rich in gold from California that there's gold dust in the dirt around it. It's almost unique among shipwrecks in that regard. But during early survey coverage, up near the bow end of the shipwreck, spotted this bell. We had a debate about how large it was because we were trying to figure out, well, it would be great to pick it up. I said it was about 24 inches across. Another guy said, no, bells on ships are never that large. It's got to be more like 14 inches or 15 inches. So we took down a basket with a 24-inch slot in it to put the bell into, and then cinch it up against the bottom of the robot and bring it to the surface. It turns out it's 24.5 inches at the flange. And so the flange it rested upside down on its trip up because the flange was like on the edges of the basket. But when we got it to the surface, we can see this marvelous writing on it that actually confirmed the site. Now, the Morgan Iron Works in New York City, you can read about the making of the bell and the making of the ship here, but they made the engines and the boilers of the SS Central America. And obviously they also made this bronze bell. There's some sort of strange irony to the fact that this enormous bronze bell, 268 pounds of it, says Morgan Iron Works, New York. We're also getting over into the area that actually rested on the bottom here, and so it's more heavily corroded. There's a 1, a very faint 8, a part of a 5, and the numeral 3 there. Very key, because the maiden voyage of the SS George Law, which was the SS Central America's original name, was out of New York in 1853. So this bell confirmed the site. When you look at this and you think, well, doesn't a ship usually have the ship's name on the bell? Well, somebody said, like, well, you know, it really is larger than most ship bells. It would have to be a very large ship to have a bell of this size. You don't really want to put something very heavy up on the upper deck of any ship. That's not sound mariner practice. Perhaps this really was like a generic bell that could be installed in a church or some other kind of stable setting. It was probably originally mounted with these bolts. I can't tell you how happy I am that Morgan Iron Works put bolt holes through here that I could like pass line through and handle it. Very handy. Can you imagine handling this 268 pounds without a way of slinging it? But if you look at the lettering on it, it will remind numismatists anyway of like early dies, because they're not perfectly aligned. All of these letters were applied into that mold by, I would guess, hand hammering from inside, mind you, inside some sort of mold. Quite a work of foundry. But that's my bell story. Now, for the historical experience, imagine yourself back in 1857 or the 1850s, and this is actually what you would hear on board that ship. That's what really, I think of it as the voice of the SS Central America, because this was a communications device. It would signal that something was going on. Either it was this time o'clock, when the captain wanted to issue his ship-wide order for all the able-bodied men to come and help bail the ship. The bell was probably ringing in order to alert everyone that something was going on. We got to find out what's happening. So I'm going to toll the bell 8 times. The SS Central America sank right around 8 o'clock in the evening on September 12th, 1857. In a quiet room, you can hear it resonate for over 30 seconds. It's a fascinating sound to me. Anyway, thank you for coming.